I wanna be the very best, like no one ever was.
Matt Manson, PI. James, what's the situation? What have we got here?
Well, it looks like we've got a murder of a hippopotamus, and it looks pretty nasty, dude.
What do you think the motive was?
Too much spaghetti is the guess. Has to be.
Never forgetty.
Never forgetty, Mr. Spaghetti. Poor damn hippopotamus.
The one on the case. I am Man Manson. And helping me today on that case,
I am James.
we're back. Us specifically.
And this time we're going to try not to talk shit about anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, we might fail, though. Might fail.
And things are up on the channel. You're here and things are up on this channel.
Yes, they are.
In fact, you specifically is on this channel.
I am.
And for some reason, episode 4 is doing much better than any other video. That's the second part of a 3-part series. Why that one?
I don't know. It's probably just because of my very masculine, very handsome, very sexy voice. That's just a guess.
But it's in 3 different videos and
well, my voice was sexier in that one, even though I think it was all recorded at the same time. But, you know. Oh, jeez.
Alright. So, I guess the theme of this one's going to be card games.
Yeah.
I have a few card games to run through. Get the small ones out of... Well, not small. But the least known ones out of the way. You know anything about Card 5 Vanguard?
I do not know anything about Card 5
Alright, moving
Vanguard.
on. So... well, I guess for... I know one person who's probably going to listen to this who does play Vanguard. Just not my cup of tea. It's got some cool concepts.
Well,
but...
I've looked at the cards and stuff for it. I mean, at the card shop down in Blank. But, like... I mean... It's not really anything. It's just like the Dragon Ball card game. It doesn't really interest me in the slightest.
It's got some cool mechanics. I think I can't see a reason you would ever not want to go first.
Yeah.
Like you draw on the first turn.
You draw on the first turn?
Yeah.
Well, then there is no reason to never go first. So I mean, you think of other card games like Magic and Force of Will and all those.
Yeah.
Know?
It's weird. Alright. Pokemon. Any familiarity with the Pokemon TCG?
I am somewhat familiar with Pokemon TCG.
Alright. Getting somewhere.
Getting places.
I did not realize how much they were killing it.
They are the price of most of the booster boxes is holding pretty steady. And the older booster boxes, I'm talking about, like first edition Jungle or base set, even like the old Team Rocket sets and the old Gym Hero sets.
Yeah. It's like,
they are ridiculously expensive.
From what I understand, well, have they overtaken Yu-Gi-Oh! As the best-selling card game yet?
I'm not sure if they've overtaken Yu-Gi-Oh!, but I'm sure they're probably close.
Alright.
I mean, it's the rise of all the other Pokemon related articles, the movies, the manga, the TV show.
Yeah.
And then also, Ryan Reynolds going to be in a Pokemon movie.
Yeah.
That probably helps a little bit boost. And I mean, Pokemon Go. And then you've got Let's Go Eevee, Let's Go Pikachu, stuff like that. It's really
The Pokemon franchise in general.
yeah. I mean, but the one thing that I will say about the Pokemon trading card game is I recently watched, and by recently I mean maybe a month ago, I watched one of their GPs on YouTube. Every deck is the same. There is one meta deck, and that is Tapu Lele and Zoroark decks. That is the meta.
Ooh,
and compared, because I don't play the Pokemon trading card game, I haven't played it in multiple years. But back when I played it, there was so many things that were meta. Like you had so many different directions to take your deck. But after watching the last GP, the top 8 were all the exact same deck with the exact same cards in it. So that's got to be. I mean, the GP circuit is probably not fun, but I could still see how it'd be fun from like a just
That might be
two dudes hanging out playing the game.
that might be something recent because I remember watching something. It's not as recent, but and there was definitely two different decks.
Really?
Yeah, I think one guy was playing like something fire related, and then the other guy, I don't know exactly what he was playing, but I do know he summoned Blastoise on the first turn, and that was pretty sick.
No, that might have been some like legacy event or something like that. But now it's, I mean, Zoroark and Tapu Lele
And then there's
are
like
the cream of the crop.
I actually do have like a few of the World Championship decks. They like release these cool packs. You get like the World Championship decks. And there's always at least like 5 different ones. Very different ones at that.
That'd be neat.
I have I have a few if you want to see them.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, as far as the Pokemon trading card game, that game is absolutely killing it right now. The stocks are high on it. You've got people that are that have invested in other card games for a very long time, starting to move into the Pokemon market now. So you'll see an increase, more than likely, in the boxes of the older sets. I do know of one person in particular that has purchased 60 sealed first edition base set boxes. So, and he definitely plans on hoarding them.
Yeah.
So you'll see some increases in booster box value, and even the new sets. Like the new sets aren't as highly touted as some of the older sets, but I mean new sets are holding their but they're holding their value, which is a good thing for the secondary market too.
I wonder. I could have swore at some point I actually saw like Pokemon was the most played TCG in the world currently.
That one shocked me none because I mean, it's got a huge, in the United States in particular, it has a huge following with like the children and stuff, kids and younger teens and stuff. And Japan, everybody probably plays at Japan.
Yeah. Well, I don't know because I know Yu-Gi-Oh is insane in Japan.
Right.
It's like I know. At least the last time I saw it was the biggest card game in Japan.
Yeah, that doesn't shock me any either.
Speaking of children, though, I guess we'll jump into something you're probably going to cover a bit more. The hell's going on with Magic? It's got, from what I've seen, it seems to have the exact opposite problem of Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So Magic's currently on an upswing, which is what a lot of people won't tell you. So the stuff that gets released to the shareholders for Magic will show that Magic itself is profitable. However, Hasbro, Toys R Us, and everything that Hasbro owns essentially is plummeting. Like literally, Magic is the only thing keeping this company afloat, in my opinion.
Wow.
That being said, there were recently talks like 2 or 3 months ago that that Hasbro may be looking to sell out of Magic. Which, I mean, really the only buyer that I would potentially think of would be like Konami. That's who makes the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game. I mean, aside from that, I can't really think of anybody else because Wizards of the Coast used to produce the Pokemon trading card game too.
They did?
Yep. A lot of people will complain that like the Pokemon company, quality is a lot worse than the old Wizards of the Coast cards because like base set and Jungle and Forest and all those were made by Wizards of the Coast. But so the new set with Magic, Allegiance, and even just this entire block, even though it's not called a block anymore, but the Ravnica block so far has been met pretty well. The last sets that have been released have been met with pretty well reception. Starting with Dominaria. Dominaria was awesome. They brought in, I can't remember the guy's name, but they brought in the original developer of Magic because he was, Dominaria is the original plane that Magic took place on.
Oh, really?
So they brought him back, and he was the lead designer for the set. And it brought a bunch of interesting things. It definitely brought in some powerful planeswalkers that's kind of not been Standard's thing in a little while. I mean, planeswalkers have been a part of Standard in previous Standards, but not to the extent that they are now. I mean, if you go back and look at the old GPs, I would say 5 out of 8 decks run some sort of Teferi. You know, whether it be like a Bant Teferi or whether it be like a Jeskai Control Teferi. Most decks that place in top 8s are going to run some sort of Teferi. Now, that being said, there was a certain card printed in Core 19 as the Buy Box promo called Nexus of Fate. There has been a huge debate lately about whether that card is bannable or not, because it kind of breaks the game for Teferi.
What does it do?
Nexus of Fate is take an extra turn after this one. If Nexus of Fate will be placed into the graveyard from anywhere, instead shuffle it into your library. So it's essentially it's a 7-drop that you play it and it gets shuffled back into your library. And then you have the potential to draw it again on your next turn that you immediately take. So the problem with Nexus of Fate is now that with the new set, Ravnica Allegiance, they came out with a card called Wilderness Reclamation. Now, it doesn't sound so bad when you think about it, because all Wilderness Reclamation does is allows you to untap your lands at the beginning of your end step. So what people are doing now is on turn 5, you could potentially loop infinite turns with Nexus of Fate and Wilderness Reclamation. Basically turn 6. Basically how you'll do it is you'll have Wilderness Reclamation out, you'll have Nexus of Fate in your hand, play Teferi, untap 2 lands with Teferi, so that you have 4 mana.
So what does Teferi do before you go on?
Oh, okay. So Teferi, Teferi itself isn't a broken card. I mean, it has 3 loyalty abilities. Its first loyalty ability, its plus ability, is draw a card, untap 2 lands at the beginning of your end step. It has a -3 ability that lets you return target permanent to its owner's library, 3rd from the top. Now, its emblem is what's crazy. Its emblem is -8, and it whenever you draw a card, exile target permanent an opponent controls. And now it doesn't specify non-land permanent. So what people are doing is they're looping this Nexus of Fate with this Wilderness Reclamation to untap all their lands. And every time they draw a card at the beginning of their upkeep, they're exiling exiling a permanent until that person has no lands, no creatures, no enchantments, no artifacts, no anything on the battlefield. And now that particular deck, this past GP that I can't remember exactly where it took place, that specific deck took the top 4 places. And this is kind of mucking up Standard a little bit. So a lot of people are calling for at least a ban of Nexus of Fate. Some people are still calling for Teferi. I don't think Teferi in itself is a broken card, so I don't think I would necessarily advocate for a ban of Teferi. Nexus of Fate, though, it's one of those cards that Wizards should have never printed. And I think they realized they should have never printed it. Now, kind of a precursor to this is there's an online format to play Magic called Magic the Gathering Arena. There was a streamer, I'm not 100% sure on the name. I think it was Noxious, but I'm not positive, who was playing a game on stream, and a person proceeded to loop Teferi for 2 hours.
Damn.
Not advancing the board state in the slightest. And that's the problem with Nexus on a digital platform as opposed to a paper platform. Because in a paper platform, if you're playing at a GP and you're not advancing the board state, they're going to give you a game loss. They'll say, okay, how many times do you want to loop this? And you say 500 times. And they're like, okay, well, what happens after 500 times? Oh, the board's exactly the same as it was 500 turns ago. Yeah, that's a game loss, sorry. So, one of the game designers for Arena decided to hop on Noxious's, I think it was him, not 100% sure, hop on the stream and proceeded to ban the guy who was looping Teferi for 2 hours.
Seems
So-
reasonable.
It seems reasonable. But so he, in the stream, people were like, well, this happens all the time. You're just doing this to protect a streamer. You're the content's bad, so you're not making any money off of it. So what Wizards then did was they announced an out of time ban. So basically, Wizards' next ban list isn't scheduled to come out until the end of March. But on Valentine's Day, they announced that they were banning Nexus of Fate on certain game modes on Arena only.
Oh, wow.
So, Nexus of Fate is now currently banned in Best of Ones on Arena, as opposed to banning it in other places like paper formats and Best of 3 formats on Arena. So, in my opinion on that, Wizards is kind of shooting themselves in the foot by allowing Nexus of Fate to go on, because if it comes to the point of Worlds and all people are playing is Nexus of Fate decks that take forever, it's not going to be entertaining for people to watch. With GP attendance already at the lowest it's been since probably the Dragon's Maze era when Standard was dead. It's a pretty sad sight. So Magic is, way down here bottoming out in a sense when it comes to GPs and world events and stuff like that. Whereas the Pokemon trading card game is way skyrocketing to the top. So it kind of makes no sense. And then another thing that Wizards did recently, I guess this wasn't super recent, but they announced that master sets were coming to an end. So generally every year they would release a master set where they would go back and reprint modern staples. Modern is a format that is, I believe, 7th edition and on.
Yeah. You
So-
guys don't have that.
No. So Wizards announced that they were going to make one more master set to end, the master sets. They called it Ultimate Masters, and it was tagged as, one of the best, or the best master set that they were ever printing. That was true. That master set was amazing. It did come with an increased price point. I think the MSRP was $329.95 for a box of 24 packs. So it was also a shortened box. But the cards, the quality of the cards and the rarity of the cards that you could pull from the set made it worth it. I mean, oops. Beep, 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 beep.
Oh, no.
Damn, outed him. Me and a friend both bought a box.
I think we referred to him as Aegis, actually.
There we go. Me and Aegis both bought a box, and our estimated box values were $100 to $150 over what we paid for them. So it was worth it. But the reason why the master set failed, they failed to mention anywhere in their blog why the master sets failed. And they are 100% to blame for master sets failing. They would take the sets and they would print the dumbest reprints in it that were not modern staples at all. So the first 2 master sets were actually really good. Then after that, you had Iconic Masters and Masters 25, which Masters 25 wasn't horrible, I guess, but Masters 25, Iconic Masters, Eternal Masters. All of these boxes now have estimated box values less than the price of the box, which makes it to where shops don't want to open them for resale to sell singles. Customers don't want to buy them because they don't want to get hosed when they buy a box for $250 and end up with $100 worth of cards out of it. So Wizards shot the Masters series in the foot. A couple other products that they've kind of done the same thing with this year were the Commander Precons. They were very noticeably weaker than they have been in previous years. And they also came with an increased price point this year, where they said that they were going to put more Commander staples in them, when in reality, that just wasn't the case. I think currently the Lord Windgrace Precon is the most valuable. It's also the most popular, but generally when people buy that to build an actual deck out of it, they end up cutting about 70% of the deck, to to where they only have about 30% of the pre-con deck in there. I would say that the weakest out of the group is probably the Estrid the Masked enchantment one. Mainly because there's not a lot of synergy in the deck. It's kind of like what happened last year or the year before with the Dragon one, where the mana base was all screwed up, so the deck was like almost unplayable out of the box. Mm-hmm. This one wasn't quite as bad, but I mean it was definitely the weakest out of the four. And Planeswalker decks, again, they were just, especially with Allegiance, they were just weak. The one thing that I will say about other card games, more specifically like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Force of Will, which we'll get to later, I'm sure.
Yeah.
When they make pre-constructed products, especially like pre-constructed standard decks, they're usually something that you could take to a Friday night game night and play and actually enjoy your time.
Oh.
Whereas with these, you take them out of the box and you're going to get dominated right away. I mean, it's not even going to be funny. So, Magic itself, Grand Prix attendance is down. It's been on a slight decline. They did come out and say that they were going to try to fix this by having larger prize pools and more media attention. They're going to try to have it, advertised on their YouTube channel. Which, on that note, one thing that Wizards of the Coast did, which a lot of people disagree with, but I kind of agree with, is they turned all of the GP organizing, all the event details, all of that kind of stuff over to Channel Fireball. So now Channel Fireball hosts all the Grand Prix in the United States, at least. I think even the ones in Europe too. I'm not 100% sure on that though. But so now Wizards of the Coast kind of steps back and lets a known and trusted group host Grand Prix and host like world qualifiers.
Is there a reason? Because I don't know Channel Fireball. Is there a reason people wouldn't want them to do that, or
mainly because a lot of people feel like that Wizards is just kind of copping out. Like, oh well, we don't want to deal with this, so we'll hand it down to you lesser peons who we. The Channel Fireball is a huge distributor of Magic cards. Okay. So, as well as an online retailer. But Channel Fireball has had their feet dipped into the Grand Prix market for a couple years now. So it's not something that anybody didn't see coming. It's just a lot of people were mad that it kind of finally came to fruition.
It finally happened.
Yeah.
I think one thing I know Magic should work on is marketing. I guess if Channel Fireball is actually doing something well with it.
Well, Arena is a good step in that direction, mainly because you now have the access for streamers to play it on a constant basis.
That's true.
So, I think they said that the first day that Arena launched in beta, there was 260,000 hours worth of content streamed in the first day. So, that's a good way to get your brand out there, especially to the people who've left Magic after some of the events of previous standards, like the Hour of Devastation standard and the Amonkhet standard, where standard just wasn't fun, and Friday Night Magic kind of went away. Mm-hmm. So, and now there's a lack of support for local game stores too, with their new Mythic Edition sets being launched exclusively on the Hasbro website. Well, the past one was launched on their eBay profile. So, to purchase those specific sets of products, you either had to use the Hasbro Direct site or their eBay profile, which was a lot, kind of an insult to some of the gaming stores, but money. That's exactly what it boiled down to. The first Mythic Edition from Guilds of Ravnica was a complete atrocity. The site was crashing every time somebody would try to purchase it. There was talks of people having money withdrawn out of their account 10 to 15 times for one purchase. It was a nightmare. The site was not ready to have the amount of traffic that they didn't anticipate the amount of traffic that was going to be brought from this. So they kind of dropped the ball on that one, just a tad bit.
Something I was going to say. I forgot what it was. It's Magic related.
Magic. Magics.
I can't think of it. I guess if I think of it, I'll come back to it.
Okay.